So let's talk about sigils, what they are, how to create them, how to activate them, why you activate them, the whole process really. The main reason why I'm actually creating this video is because the YouTube algorithm decided to spit videos out on my feed about sigil work. And to be totally honest with you, I was incredibly disappointed. The first guy wasn't quite sure if he was actually pronouncing sigil correctly, and then proceeded to say that it's extremely ancient magic which was created in Egypt. Yeah, you know, if he's got over 700,000 subscribers, so if you're going to start teaching people magical techniques and practices, at least understand what you're teaching and, you know, study it properly first. I can't, you know, the guy's great. I'm not going to name names because he's a great guy. He's got a fantastic channel. And you know, the stuff he puts on his channel is great, but it's just the sigilization and the sigil work and the sigil magic that I was coming across was just, it was awful. The second one was by an absolutely marvelous lady. I think she's fantastic. I love her to bits. But she said that sigil work and sigil magic is chaos magic, which therefore means that it is very weak magic. To say that chaos magic is very weak, oh, very, very bad representation. Extremely bad. So bad I don't even know what to say about it. And she also mentioned something that I've never heard of before. It's you use bodily fluids to activate the sigil. Now the only time you would use bodily fluids on a sigil is if you're using the sigil to activate a servitor or an artificial elemental. So there's a lot of information out there that is just, it's wrong. It's being put out by misinformed people who haven't actually studied these techniques properly and haven't really delved into it enough to actually understand what they're teaching. And that's a concern, it's a huge concern. So I thought I'd talk about sigils. I'm not going to show you how to create them, I'll do that in a later post. But I want to talk about sigils, what they are. So basically, a sigil is an image. It's a glyph that represents an intent. And that intent is passed from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, and that's where it's planted. And there are ways to do this, which I will get to just now. But if you look at the history of sigils, the modern use of sigils is in Chaos Magick, and it was actually developed, originally developed by Osman Spare, who is considered to be the grandfather of Chaos Magick. I mean, Chaos Magick itself only developed after Spare died, but a lot of it was based on what he wrote about, his practices. And as far as sigil creation is concerned, it was based originally on his alphabet of desire. Now, it has been suggested that he got the idea from his grandmother, as far as I remember. I read this many years ago, who used to create bind runes, or bindaruna. So have a look into bind runes. It's basically, if you know what the runes are from Nordic traditions, then you take a bunch of runes and you combine them into, you overlap them, combine them into an actual image or a glyph. And the same thing happens with modern sigil magic, where you take a bunch of letters and you take the shapes of those letters, you combine them into an actual image. So you overlay them, move them around, do whatever you want to them. Really, if you're an artist and you like doodling, this is absolutely great for you. You'll love it to bits. And it's a method that you can use for manifestation. I mean, purely, it really is mostly a manifestation method. You can use it for anything you really want to, but for manifestation, it's fantastic. But if we look further back and into different areas, if you are familiar with the demons of the Goetia, or nobody really knows how it's pronounced, Goetia, Goetia, there's about 100 different pronunciations and nobody can agree on it. But if you look into the seals of the demons or seals of angels from Kabbalah, even the veve of the Loa from Voodoo, these are all glyphs and symbols that represent the spirits, the demons, the angels, the Loa, whatever spirit you're working with, and that spirit obviously ties into an intent. But you even get modern sigils, the Nike Swish, for example, corporate sigils, if you will. These are corporate logos that have created a certain psychological intent. You know, you see the Nike Swish and you know exactly what it is. You associate it with a certain thing, and you want, if you are into sports and things, you probably want a pair of Nike, and so it creates a desire. The McDonald's golden arch. I mean, there's all these glyphs and logos that are being used by corporations that are becoming sigils. Obviously, in the beginning, it's just an image, but over time, as the demand starts being created, the desire's there, then it becomes a sigil, and as soon as you see it, you associate with something. So there's lots of examples of what sigils are and how they're used in the modern world, in the years past, in ancient history, and everything else. But I think the main thing to speak about is the modern use of sigils in Chaos Magic. I say that it doesn't need to be used in, you don't need to be a chaot or a chaos magician to actually use sigils. You can be anybody, but it originates in Chaos Magic, the modern use of it. See, now I think I'm talking myself in circles here as well. So it originated with Osman Spare and his alphabet of desire, which then developed in Chaos Magic was then created, and a lot of his teachings were brought into that. Sigil Magic was included in Chaos Magic, and it went from there. And now everybody's using it. People are using it for their daily practice. But how? The whole thing with Sigil Magic, and this has got to do with a lot of spell work. In fact, most kinds of spell work actually use this. It's called the 80-20 scale, or the 80-20 theory. So if you imagine, when you're in an active state during the day, like I am now, I'm in a very active state, I'm definitely not relaxed. Well, I am outside, I'm very relaxed in nature, but I'm in an active state at the moment. So in my active state, my subconscious mind is 20% active, but my conscious mind is 80% active. So if you imagine like a seesaw, so this is your 80, so let's say this is an 80 kilogram weight and this is a 20 kilogram weight, so it's going to weigh it down. So what you want to do is change that into 20% conscious, 80% subconscious. So if you have your sigil here and then you go into a gnostic state, you move that scale or the seesaw through the gnostic state so that it changes. And then the sigil or the intent just shifts from your conscious to your subconscious, and that's how it gets planted. And the way to actually get into or transfer from the conscious to the subconscious is through deep trance work, gnostic states. You can even use death postures. I did go searching for other videos that people have created on YouTube about sigils. A lot of the stuff they didn't talk about either, but there was one guy who mentioned actually using yoga postures that you find to be very difficult and painful, and holding that posture And then when you can't hold it anymore, you let the sigil, you imagine the sigil just bursting into white flames. So yoga postures you can use, but death postures are a bit more difficult and very painful. You can use sex magic, masturbation, anything that gets your conscious mind to move into a lesser state almost. So it is a gnostic state that you're actually aiming for. There are also some people who have developed the idea of sigils. If you like to read comics, DC Comics and Vertigo specifically, you've probably heard of Grant Morrison. There's also Alan Moore, who created Promethea, but Providence is the one I'm thinking of. But Grant Morrison created a series of comics called The Invisibles. So if you've ever read those, you were subjected to a hypersigil. Now, Grant Morrison decided to create this hypersigil, which is considered to be a series of works of art. And through his comic, he created this hypersigil. So through the whole process of this series of artworks, the intent is passed on. And then there's also Gordon White. Have a look for runesoup.com. He's got a very good blog about Chaos Magick and all of the aspects and quite a few topics actually. Now he developed the idea of shoaling. So if you imagine a shoal of fish, the shoal of fish all move in one direction, but it's a number of fish. So the idea behind sigilization and shoaling is that you create a bunch of sigils to represent one thing. So instead of going general, like I have lots of money, you specifically target each sigil with a specific aspect of that in order to get to that point. So for instance, if you own a business, you create one to bring in more clients. You create a second one to discover more sources to get more clients. Maybe another one to get your current clients to become loyal and therefore refer your business more often. So you create a whole series of these things, steps basically that you need to take or create in order to get to your goal. There's my Hardy-Dars giving their input. I'm in South Africa, by the way, so we have Hardy-Dars here. If you haven't been to South Africa or Johannesburg, yeah, they wake you up at 5 in the morning. It's fantastic. Where was I? Okay, so shoaling. So you create a whole bunch of sigils that are specifically targeted to more intentful things in order to get to your general goal. And he also came up with the idea of creating a robofish. Now the robofish is a sigil which is aimed for the intent of creating something that is inevitable. So you, as the Chaos Magician or the sigil worker, knows that whatever it is that this robofish sigil is aiming for will happen. It doesn't matter if the sky falls out, if the rain, if the world blows up, it will still happen. And that robofish then leads the rest of the shoal. So you have the robofish in the front, that's inevitable, it's going to happen, but create the sigil anyway, because then the rest of the fish, the shoaling, then can follow the robofish, and they all then manifest. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that people don't seem to be talking about. And especially the whole thing of you need to get pass the sigil from a conscious state into a subconscious state through Gnostic techniques and Gnostic trance. Too many people are saying, I mean, okay, it works if you just create a sigil and you just look at it. It will work over time because you are creating the feeling appreciation that you need to for manifestation and law of attraction and such things. But the whole idea with a sigil is to use it properly and to get it to pass from the conscious to the subconscious. And once it gets to the subconscious, forget about it. What often happens is you get a thing called, Ray Sherwin spoke about this a lot, you get a thing called lusting after results. So even before you've finished with your spell working or your sigilization, whatever it may be, you start lusting after results. But especially afterwards, which is why you should try and forget about what you've done. The lusting after results part is basically your conscious mind putting little roadblocks in. You know, anybody who's human will have it happen to them. So let's say you created the sigil with the intent to get a new job, for instance, and you do the whole sigilization and the sigil work. You activate it, and there it goes. It's on its way. It's in the subconscious, and it's on its way. But your conscious mind comes along and says, okay, but what if I ask for the wrong thing? What if I actually need to do this first? What if I get a job that I don't like? What if? And it's just all these what ifs just start hitting it left, right and center. And whereas this intent is going along, it starts being hit, and then it eventually goes off course and doesn't get to its target. So lusting after results, not a good thing. And the best way to stop lusting after results is firstly discipline, of course, but obviously after you've done your sigil work, just forget about what you did. One very good method to do, if you do find this is a problem for you, this lusting after results, create a whole bunch of sigils for all different things and put them into a box or a book, or just put them away somewhere. And then a week later come back to them and start taking them out. And if you pick up a sigil and you know exactly what it was for, put it back and keep going through them. Once you pick up a sigil that you don't recognize, you can't remember what it was for, activate that one. The subconscious remembers what it was. As long as the conscious doesn't, it can't actually start picking away at it. So then activate the one that you don't remember, put the others back. A week later again, come back, see which ones you remember. I find this very difficult because I tend to bloody well remember all of them. So I've actually had to, as best I can, train my mind to not lust after results. It can be done, obviously, but it's not as easy as just, you know, trying to bypass that whole process by just forgetting what the sigil, consciously forgetting what the sigil was for. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to mention. As I say, I will be doing more on sigil work in a later video, demonstrations, things like that. I'll do that before I do a video on how to create servitors, because obviously in the Chaos Magick method of creating servitors, sigils become very important. So you need to know how to do sigils before you can create a servitor in that aspect. So if I do think of anything else, I'll just make another video and let you know. And that's it. If you'd like to get more exclusive content, you can join me on my Patreon page. The link will be in the description below. And that's it for me. I hope you like the outside. I like the outside. I like doing the videos out here. It's a lot nicer. It's very sunny behind me though. But you get all the bird sound and everything. It's relaxing. I'll take you around the garden one day. It's great here. Love it. Anyway, cheers.